The amber emergency strips painted everyone the same sick color. Jaundiced ghosts moved through a dying ship. Sheridan Cole stood at the center of the Hammer of Ilya's bridge. His left shoulder rolled in a slow, unconscious circle. The scar tissue pulled against his command jacket. Priority burst from the outer picket. The comms officer's voice cracked on the last word. 3 hunter-killers, Velhari, they just dropped into the system. Sheridan did not ask for confirmation. He did not ask for identification. The trembling shore had been empty for 6 weeks. He had known the silence was too clean. Every anchorage felt like a trap now. General evasive. All civilian transports to scatter pattern Delta 7. Tell them to burn hard for the outer ring and go silent. The bridge crew moved. Hands reached for panels. The low hum of the reactor deepened by half a note and held there. It was a note of strain. The ship asked its bones to bend further than they were designed to go. Maia Delacroix's voice cut through the noise before the orders could be executed. The jump drive is still hot from the last jump. She was already at the engineering override station. Her compact frame bent over the panel with her forearms braced against the edge. It needs 18 minutes to cool before I can engage it again. Sheridan felt the number settle into his chest like a stone dropped into still water. 18 minutes. He looked at the tactical display. 3 red icons burned inbound, trimmed for combat speed. They moved through the system with patient precision. Predators knew their prey had nowhere left to run. Bex, he did not raise his voice. The bridge was small enough. The pilot was already at the nav station. Her thumbnail pressed against her front teeth, her eyes fixed on the intercept calculation running across her screen. She was 22 years old. She had done this math too many times before. 12 minutes to weapons range. She said it flat. No drama, just the numbers. Maybe 11 if they push their drives past the safety limit. 11 minutes. The drive needed 18. The math was simple and brutal. Everyone on the bridge understood it without needing an explanation. Sheridan's left shoulder rolled again. He forced it still. Civilian transports scatter as ordered. His voice stayed even. The hammer holds the line. The words landed in the silence like a hammer strike on a bell. The comms officer stopped moving. The weapons operator's hands hovered over her console without touching it. Even the ambient hum of the reactor seemed to drop for a moment, as if the ship itself understood what he was asking. Hold the line. It meant buying time with hull and crew. It meant fighting a delaying action against 300 killers in a cruiser with a dead drive and shields running at 73% efficiency. Lena was the first to move. She turned from the engineering station with her hands still raised from the work. Her grease-darkened palms opened in a gesture almost apologetic. There is a workaround. Sheridan watched her. He had learned to read the tone beneath her voice over 3 years of running from system to system. She was about to propose something violating every safety protocol in the manual. We can route emergency power through the shield grid, Lena said. The drive can pull from the emitter array directly. That surge will be enough to jump. And then, the emitter array burns out on the exit. She met his eyes. We arrive with no shields and no secondary power distribution, blind, defenseless, and running on the reactor's backup heartbeat. The weapons operator let out a breath, almost a laugh. No shields, a wounded drive. They would arrive wherever they arrived with nothing but hull armor between them and whatever waited on the other side. Sheridan did not hesitate. He had stopped hesitating somewhere in the 2nd year of the Exodus. He had watched the last major fleet anchorage burn from orbit. He understood the universe had run out of safe options for his species. Do it. Lena turned back to the panel and began pulling the override sequences out of the machine with her fingers. The smell of coolant sweat rose from her forearms as she worked, sharp and chemical. It meant she was pushing past the point where most engineers stopped and called it impossible. The bridge fell into a rhythm. Lena worked. The crew ran their stations. The 3 red icons on the tactical display grew larger. Their vectors tightened. Bex Fenna looked up from the nav panel. She had stopped tapping her teeth. Her face was very young and very old at the same time. She had been born running and had never stopped. Commander, she did not use his rank often. It made the word land harder. Do you think there is a place, somewhere that will take us? Sheridan looked at her. He looked at the amber light on her skin. He looked at the circles under her eyes. He looked at the hope she was trying to keep out of her voice because she already knew the answer. He did not answer. His silence filled the bridge. It was heavier than any order he had given that day. He had no comfort to offer. He had only survival. Survival without a destination was just a longer way to die. Bex's gaze dropped back to her panel. She did not ask again. 12 minutes to contact, one of the bridge crew said. 9 minutes to jump readiness, Lena corrected. If the emitter array holds, if the power surge does not backfeed through the reactor, if a dozen other things do not go wrong. She did not list the things that could go wrong. She did not need to. Every person on that bridge had memorized the list through experience. The ship shuddered. The gravity compensator complained. A low grinding sound vibrated through the deck plates into the bones. The hammer was accelerating. It turned to present its narrowest profile to the approaching Velhari ships. Hunter-killers are splitting formation, the weapons operator reported. 2 are angling for flanking positions. 1 is maintaining direct approach. Standard Velhari hunting tactics. They would pin the prey with the lead ship and tear it apart from the sides. Clean. Efficient. The tactics of a species hunting smaller ships in the dark between stars for longer than humanity had been writing its history. 5 minutes, Lena said. The lead hunter-killer grew on the tactical display. It was a smooth shape, organic and purposeful. The product of a species building ships the way other species grew coral. Its hull glowed faintly in the infrared spectrum. Internal systems cycled for weapons release. 3 minutes. The bridge temperature rose. The air grew thinner and warmer. The smell of burnt insulation from the engine compartment became stronger. It meant the ship was bleeding its margin for error into the void. 1 minute. The hammer's deck pitched hard as Bex threw the ship into a lateral evasion pattern. The gravity compensator screamed. Sheridan grabbed the edge of his command station and held on. Jump drive is hot, Lena said. Her voice was tight. Emitter array is at 112% rated load and climbing. I'm engaging in 3 seconds. She counted. The bridge held its breath. The hunter-killer's plasma lance fired. A line of energy crossed the intervening space, too fast to dodge, too bright to look at. It struck the hammer's shield. The shield held, but the impact rippled through the hull like a hammer on a drum. Engaging. The universe tore open. The Hammer of Ilya screamed into phase space. The sound was not the clean harmonic of a properly tuned drive. It was a shriek, a protest, a sound of tortured emitters and overloaded conduits, a ship being pushed through a door it was not designed to fit. The torn edges of reality closed behind them, and the hammer dropped back into normal space. Sheridan's vision swam. He blinked. The emergency lights came back into focus. The tactical display repopulated with data from the ship's straining sensors. The system they had arrived in was not empty. A Velhari battle group waited in formation directly ahead. The vibration hit Praxillar first. A low thrum through the nutrient gel pulsed against his membrane skin in waves. Wrong frequency, wrong direction. He opened his sensory slits. The command chamber resolved around him. A flooded dome of warm, salt-bitter water bent light through layers of suspended organic particulates. His officers floated in their stations. Cartilage plates flared in patterns of readiness. The tactical displays shimmered across the water's surface tension like oil on a current. The human ship had emerged exactly where nothing should be. Praxillar studied the data: damaged hull, collapsing shield signature. The vessel had jumped blind and arrived broken, a catastrophic error from a desperate species. It had lost its homeworld and forgotten how to navigate. He pulsed a command through the water. The battle group would close for capture. No destroy. The humans had value as biological specimens. Their engineering methods might teach the Velhari something about redundancy and waste. Gavriksal drifted into his field of vision. The historian's calcified ridges caught the bioluminescent glow from the chamber walls. They cast a chalk-white halo around his skull. His chest patterns flickered. Not submission, not aggression. Curiosity. Praxillar felt the vibration of Gavriksal's pressure words against his own membranes. The human ship emerged at the center of the formation. Praxillar dismissed the observation. The humans had no formation discipline. Their jump calculations were crude approximations. Any fleeing vessel would land at the edge of an enemy perimeter, not its heart. Gavriksal's chest pulsed again. His symbiotic Kelvith coiled tighter around his arm, recording every thrum of data. The center is the hardest coordinate to calculate, Commander. A blind jump to the edge requires only distance. A blind jump to the center requires precise knowledge of every ship's position and velocity. The human ship did not flee here by accident, Gavriksal concluded. It aimed. Prixillar tasted the chemical spike of irritation in his own membranes. He did not respond. The human ship fired. Not weapons, something else. A burst of signals spread through the sensor field like ink through still water. For 7 seconds, the Velhari battle group lost cohesion. Every ship saw 20 different false targets. The formations dissolved into confusion as each vessel tried to lock onto a phantom. When the sensor field cleared, the human ship had moved. Closer. Not away, not running, closing the distance. Prixillar felt the gel around him grow warm as his blood pressure rose. This was not how prey behaved. Prey fled. Prey scattered. Prey died in predictable patterns. The Velhari had cataloged those patterns across 17 species and 300 cycles of expansion. This ship moved toward the threat. Gavriksal's chest patterns flickered faster now. His excitement was a visible pulse, blue-green waves spreading across the cartilage plates in his throat. He was asking questions. Prixillar did not have answers. One of the battle group ships fired a magnetic harpoon. The weapon was standard disabling protocol. A tethered projectile would latch onto the human vessel's hull and deliver a current surge to its power systems. The shot should have struck. It missed by 4 ship lengths. Gavriksal calculated the margin instantly. His Kelvith fed the numbers into the command chamber's water surface display. 4 ship lengths at that range was not a miss. It was a complete failure of prediction. The historian asked the question Prixillar did not want to hear. How could any pilot misjudge a shot that close? The human ship fired again. This time the energy came from a concentrated source. A plasma lance, tight and hot. It did not target the Velhari ships. It struck the center of the formation. The exact coordinate where the tidal song's sensor field intersected with the battle group's command relay. The water in Prixillar's chamber went dark. The sensor field collapsed, not damaged, severed. The plasma lance had cut through the organic thread, tying every ship's perception into a single coherent picture. The tidal song was blind. Prixillar tasted panic for the first time in 40 cycles. He pulsed a general retreat. The command echoed through the water. It translated into pressure waves spreading across the surviving sensor nodes. Ships pulled back. The formation broke into individual vessels running defensive patterns, each one alone in the dark. The humans did not pursue. They held position, they waited. Prixillar floated in the silent chamber. His membranes pulled nutrient gel through his respiratory slits in ragged pulses. The gel tasted wrong, too much adrenaline compound. His body was flooding itself with a chemical response he had not needed since his youth. Gavriksal drifted beside him. The historian's chest patterns had slowed, not excitement anymore, something else. A steady violet pulse, the color of deep thought. The humans did not come here running, Gavriksal said. Prixillar knew this already. He did not need the historian to state the obvious. But Gavriksal continued anyway. His pressure words carried through the water with patient rhythm, an elder explaining a lesson to a juvenile. They arrived at the center of the formation on purpose. They fired at the sensor field, not at weapons, on purpose. They are communicating something, Commander. You do not understand you are being spoken to instead of fought. Prixillar turned his sensory slits toward the tactical display. The surface of the water remained dark. No sensor data. No enemy positions. Nothing but the cold stillness of a ship gone blind in its own blood. The human vessel's shield emitter collapsed. Prixillar saw the reading through a secondary system still functioning. A backup sensor node mounted on the tidal song's hull, isolated from the main network. The human ship's phase shield had failed. The signature flickered once and went dark. No shields, no escape. A damaged hull and a crew broadcasting its position by firing a plasma lance. Prixillar pulsed the order before Gavriksal could object. Full strike package prepped for launch. Boarding teams, capture the vessel alive. The humans would be extracted from their wreckage and studied. Their tactics would be dissected. Their stubbornness would become data. The strike craft launched from the tidal song's underbelly in a spread formation. 8 organic vessels, each grown from the same seed stock as the mother ship. They carried Velhari warriors bred for close quarters combat. Their fins cut through the void with the precision of a species evolved in deep currents. Prixillar watched them close on the human ship's coordinates. The human vessel did not move. It waited. The proximity alarm ripped through the engineering bay like a blade across metal. Maia Delacroix straightened from the maintenance panel. Her breathing mask fogged as she stared at the bulkhead speaker. 3 rapid tones, then a voice she did not recognize, young and thin with panic. Chief, boarding pods, 8 impacts, upper decks portside and ventral. Her hands were already moving. She yanked the panel cover back into place and grabbed her tool belt from the deck. The phase shield emitter array smoked behind her, blackened and useless. They did not have time for repairs. She keyed her comm. Damage control to me. Everyone else seal your sections and stay quiet. 3 figures emerged from the smoke haze. Mendez, a woman with weld scars up both forearms. Barnes, gray-haired and moving slow from an old back injury. And a kid named Olmsted who looked like he had never held a weapon in his life. They had cutting torches. That would have to be enough. Bex Fenna dropped through the maintenance hatch behind her, landing light on her boots. The pilot's face was pale, but her voice came out steady. "Lena, they're coming down the main transit shaft. They'll be at the bulkhead in 3 minutes." Lena did not stop moving. She crossed to the environmental control panel and began disabling safety locks. "Good, let them come." "Good," Bex's thumbnail found her front teeth. 8 pods full of aliens and you're rerouting ventilation. What exactly is the plan here? Lena pointed at the deck plans glowing on the wall display. The ship's interior was a maze of compartments and crawl spaces. She traced a finger along the lower passages. "We don't fight them in the upper decks. They expect that. We open every airlock between here and them, give them a clear path all the way down." Bex stared at her. "You want to invite them into engineering." "I want them to come to me." Lena tapped the environmental panel. "Look at the temperature gradient. Upper decks are 23 degrees, comfortable. Lower decks are 9 degrees and dropping. The air is dry as bone dust. Their membranes will crack inside 10 minutes. She pointed at the cold zones on the display. The ship's ancient insulation had failed years ago in 3 distinct pockets. The boarders did not know the ship's weaknesses. "We live in this wreck. We know every cold spot, every draft. That gives us time." Bex's hand dropped from her mouth. "Time for what?" "Time to make them regret coming aboard." The first impact shook the deck. Something heavy slammed against the hull 5 compartments away. The sound of it was wet and wrong. Lena heard the Velhari before she saw them. A low, thrumming vibration traveled through the metal. It made her teeth ache. Barnes racked his cutting torch's igniter. The blue-white flame hissed. Mendez pulled her mask down. Olmsted looked like he might be sick. The bulkhead hatch cycled open. 3 Velhari entered engineering. They moved like creatures half-drowned. Their membrane skin glistened in the amber emergency light. Their internal organs pulsed violet and slow. They carried weapons humming with contained energy, but the weapons drooped in their grip. The air hit them like a wall. Lena saw it happen. The lead Velhari's membrane puckered and tightened. The second one made a sound like a wet cloth being wrung out. A crack appeared on the third one's left arm. Thin, precise. The edge of the crack began to curl. Dry air, 9 degrees. A species evolved to breathe water vapor at saturation. Lena triggered the coolant release. Emergency coolant flooded from the ceiling vents in a white plume. The vapor was freezing cold against her skin. It stung her eyes and coated her lungs. She pulled her breathing mask tight and stepped forward. The Velhari could not see through the vapor. Their weapons flashed blind into the smoke, cutting nothing but pipes and deck plates. Lena moved left. Mendez moved right. Barnes and Olmsted took the center. The cutting torch felt solid in her hands. Heavy, familiar. She had used one 1,000 times to repair this ship. Now she used it to carve through the breathing apparatus strapped to the nearest Velhari's chest. The creature convulsed. Its membrane skin rippled as the air it could no longer filter burned its lungs. It fell. Mendez caught the second one in the leg. The beam sliced through the apparatus on its thigh. The Velhari collapsed. Its claws scraped uselessly across the deck as it tried to breathe air that was killing it. Olmsted froze. The kid stood there with his torch lit and his hand shaking. The third Velhari turned toward him, weapon rising. Lena got there first. She drove the torch into the apparatus on the creature's shoulder. The membrane split. The Velhari screamed. A sound like water boiling. It went down. The vapor began to clear. 3 bodies lay on the deck. Their membranes were cracking in long spiderweb patterns. One of them was still alive. A Velhari officer. Its cartilage ridges were thicker. Its chest patterns pulsed in slow rhythms even as its skin flaked. It raised a hand. The translator in her earpiece crackled. The voice came through wet and broken. Surrender, terms we offer. Lena looked at it. It did not understand. It saw a creature backed into a corner, fighting with tools because it had nothing else. It thought that was weakness. She knelt beside the dying officer. No. You think this is desperation, she said. You think we're fighting because we have no choice. You're right, we don't have a choice, but that's not why we fight. We fight because we've already lost everything. Lena's voice stayed flat. Earth is gone. 3 billion humans died in the first year. We've been surrendering for 3 years, giving up ships, giving up people. Every time we hit the bottom, we find a new way to fall. We're done surrendering. Lena stood. This room, this ship, these 5,000 people, this is all we have left. You don't get this ship. The officer's chest stilled. Its organs pulsed once, twice, then nothing. Lena turned away. Bex stood at the maintenance hatch. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady. Lena, external transmission, flagship, encrypted. Lena's blood went cold. Put it through. The bridge relayed the signal. A human voice, stitched together from intercepted comms, spoke clearly. Commander Sheridan Cole, you are identified. You have wounded our formation. You have killed our boarding party. This is noted. The recording paused. When it resumed, the voice was a live transmission, delivered through an organic translator. It carried the wet thrum of Velhari's speech beneath the words. Surrender your commander to us. We will discuss terms for the rest. The communication alcove on the Hammer was barely wide enough for one person. Sheridan Cole stood in the center with his arms crossed. The display flickered with the greenish static of a signal stretched across half a light second. Bex Fenna watched from the doorway, her thumbnail pressed against her front tooth. The image solidified. A Velhari floated in a flooded chamber. An organic tendril pulsed against its arm. Its voice translated through the speakers as a low-pressure hum. It vibrated in Sheridan's molars. Gavriksal spoke without preamble. The human fleet would surrender its vessels. The humans would submit to relocation. The Velhari would guarantee non-aggression and a permanent reservation system. No further incursions into ancestral waters would be tolerated. Sheridan let the silence stretch. He rolled his shoulder. What does the reservation look like? Gavriksal's chest patterns shifted. A secondary display appeared. Sheridan saw a single planet orbiting a dim red star. The surface was brown and ochre. Atmospheric data scrolled along the edge, marginal oxygen, marginal water, no industry, no infrastructure. A prison. Sheridan's voice came out flat and tired. Why should I accept terms that reduce my people to livestock? Gavriksal's membrane skin pulsed a slow, violet rhythm. The Velhari are protecting territory belonging to our species from before memory. The humans are trespassers. The offer is generous. Other species have simply been exterminated. Sheridan asked a question. It was quiet, the quietest thing he had said all day. How far back does your ancestral claim go? Gavriksal's chest pattern stopped. The bioluminescence went flat and still. He touched the tendril on his arm. The Kelvith pulsed. His head tilted at an angle Sheridan had learned meant confusion. The Kelvith recorded only what a single host experienced. Gavriksal had been alive for 47 cycles. His ancestors were names without bodies. He could not retrieve what he had never stored. He had no answer. Sheridan waited. The static crackled across the distance. He spoke again. His voice was still flat, still tired. Human written records go back 10,000 years. Human cultural memory includes events from before your species developed aquatic respiration. Our institutions do not die when we die. Our records survive. Our grudges survive. Our claims survive. He leaned closer to the pickup. Consider what it means to negotiate with a species that does not forget. The transmission terminated. The display dissolved into static. Bex Fenna let out a long breath from the doorway. That was not a negotiation. That was a threat delivered in a library voice. Sheridan did not answer. He stared at the blank display for a count of 10. Then he left the alcove without a word. Gavriksal floated in the flooded chamber. The water was warm and tasted of dissolved minerals. His Kelvith pulsed against his arm with a cold, static sensation. It meant nothing. He focused on the question: human, ancestral claim, duration. The Kelvith returned nothing. It had no data. It had never needed data like this before. He looked at Praxillar. The tactical commander's internal organs pulsed a hard orange through his translucent skin. Prixillar demanded to know why the transmission had ended. Gavriksal tried to explain. He said the human had claimed a memory span of 10,000 of his years. He said the human described a species storing events across generations. Prixillar's orange pulse quickened. He said that was impossible. He said no biological memory could sustain that span. He said the human was lying. Gavriksal touched his Kelvith again. The cold static pressed against his arm. He did not sound like he was lying. He sounded like he was stating a fact so old it no longer required emphasis. Prixillar's chest plates flattened. The color drained from his membrane skin. He ordered Gavriksal to prepare a full cultural analysis of human record-keeping. He demanded proof. He would not accept that a species of drifters held older claims than the Velhari tide. Gavriksal opened his mouth to respond. Then he closed it. He looked at the Kelvith coiled around his arm and understood something new. His entire species understood ancestry as personal memory. The chain broke at the limits of individual experience. The human had described a different kind of memory, a memory living in symbols and marks on surfaces, a memory requiring no living nervous system to carry it forward. He looked at Prixillar and saw the first flicker of real uncertainty in the commander's eyes. It was tiny, it was barely visible, but it was there. Gavriksal realized Prixillar was afraid, not of the human ships, not of the plasma lance, but of the question, the thing he could not answer, of the possibility that a species of homeless wanderers had been holding territory longer than the Velhari had held water. 4 hours passed. The silence on the bridge had a texture. It pressed against Bex Fenna's ears like the pressure before a storm. The Velhari fleet hung motionless in the dark. Their bioluminescent hulls pulsed in slow rhythm she could not read. Sheridan stood at the central display with his back to her. His shoulder rolled again, once, twice. "The waiting is the fight," he said without turning. "They want us to break before they fire again." Bex tapped her front tooth. "We didn't break before." "We hadn't thought about it yet." He turned. His eyes looked hollow. "The silence gives you time to think. Thinking gives you time to realize how much you have already lost. That is the point." A light pulsed on the comms board, not a weapon lock, a transmission request. Bex opened the channel. Gavriksal's voice came through the speakers. The translation was flat and processed, but the hesitation between words was unmistakable. "We wish to see your records." Sheridan stepped forward. "What records?" "The records you described. Your cultural memory. We cannot accept your claim without verification." Sheridan's mouth formed something almost a smile. "I am sending you a data packet. It contains excerpts from human archival records, scanned documents, translations, contextual metadata." The transmission took 47 seconds. Then they waited. 8 minutes passed. The comms light pulsed again. Gavriksal's voice returned. "We cannot read these languages. The grammatical frameworks you provided are internally consistent, but we have no independent verification source." "We are the source," Sheridan said. "That is precisely the problem," Gavriksal pressed. "Your records are self-referential. The individuals who wrote them are dead. They cannot be questioned. There is no third party to confirm these documents are genuine." Bex understood. The Velhari had no concept of written record as evidence. Their own memory was biological. A document written by a dead hand was worse than useless. It was untestable. An idea came to her. It was not a good idea. It was not a strategic idea. It was just an idea. "Send them something physical," she said. Sheridan turned to face her fully. "We have the archive ship," Bex continued. "We have things from Earth, real things, not data, a piece of the world they cannot argue with. You want to give them an artifact?" "Yes." "Which one?" Bex already knew. She had seen it once 3 years ago during a maintenance rotation. She had not understood the significance then. She understood now. The station fragment, the ISS truss segment, serial number and all. Sheridan's face went still. "Do you know what that piece of metal is?" "A piece of the International Space Station, assembled in orbit in 1998, the first permanent human habitat in space. It was on Earth when we left. It is the only piece of the first thing we built out here that survived." "Yes." Sheridan looked at the display. The Velhari fleet still hung there. "Pilot Fenna, go get it." The archive ship was small and cold and smelled of old paper, though there was no paper on board. Bex moved through the narrow corridors with a hand lamp. She found the climate locker in the aft section. The fragment was smaller than she remembered. A meter long at most, gray and unremarkable. It looked like a piece of scaffolding left out in the weather too long, but the serial number was still there, stamped into the metal, clean and sharp. 1998. The year her grandfather had been born. The year humans had looked up and decided they would keep going. Bex picked up the fragment. It was heavier than it looked. The cold of it bit through her gloves. She carried it back to the Hammer's hangar bay. Sheridan was waiting. He took the fragment. He turned it over once. Then he handed it back. "Put it in an uncrewed shuttle," he said. "Send it across. Tell them to examine it physically. Tell them the serial number is stamped. Tell them the alloy composition is consistent with 20th century Earth manufacturing. And if they still do not believe us..." Sheridan looked at her. His eyes were tired. "Then we have lost nothing we were not already losing." Bex loaded the fragment. She programmed the flight path. She watched through the hangar bay window as the shuttle detached and drifted toward the Velhari flagship, a tiny piece of history crossing the dark. She did not look away until the shuttle was swallowed by the Tidal Song's docking bay. The Tidal Song's command chamber had never felt so small. Prixillar floated in the pressurized water. His membrane skin darkened with alarm hormones tasting like copper against his tongue. He had increased the chamber pressure twice. It was not working. The human artifact rested in a stasis field at the center of the chamber. A piece of dull metal, primitive, solid, real. Gavriksal drifted beside him. "The analysis is complete, Commander. The metal is from their homeworld. Our spectrometry confirms the alloy composition predates any known spacefaring civilization in this sector. The manufacturing techniques are crude but consistent. The serial number is genuine." Prixillar stared at the fragment. The truth of it settled into the water around him like a poison. They built a permanent habitat in space, before they had faster-than-light travel, before they had reliable radiation shielding, while they were still fighting wars with chemical explosives. Yes, Gavriksal confirmed. They built a structure intended to last for decades, and they stamped it with a number. Anyone finding it later would know when it was made. Prixillar tasted the bitter fluid his own body was producing. Fear. "I am giving the order, complete annihilation, no capture, no relocation, no delay." Gavriksal's chest patterns fluttered. "Tactical commander, that is not a viable. It is not what you recommend. I am aware. Questions are irrelevant if the questioners are dead. That is a philosophical position, not a tactical one. We have no guarantee destroying them will end the mystery." The hull began to vibrate. It was a low-frequency hum at first, barely perceptible. Then it grew, steady, unbroken, a constant stream of energy passing through the Tidal Song's structure. "Identify the source," Prixillar ordered. Gavriksal's Kelveth flared. The historian closed his eyes. "It is the human fleet they are transmitting." "Jam it." "I cannot. It is not a single frequency. They are broadcasting on every channel simultaneously. The ship's filters are overwhelmed." Prixillar felt his membrane tighten. "What are they sending?" Gavriksal's eyes opened. They were dark. Their history, every record, every language, every war, every peace, every name. "You cannot verify that." "No, but I can read the first line of one of their oldest texts." Gavriksal's voice carried a new weight. "I cannot understand the words. The language is extinct even for them, but I understand the age. This text was old when the sea that birthed our species was still cooling." The chamber fell silent. The hull continued to vibrate. The data broadcast continued. Gavriksal asked the question Prixillar did not want to hear. What happens to a species that witnesses the death of a civilization older than its own? Prixillar did not answer. He understood suddenly. If he destroyed the human fleet, the data would not die. It was already spreading. Other species would find it. Other species would learn. They would learn the Velhari had killed the last of a species writing poetry, before the Velhari had learned to breathe air. Prixillar had never hesitated in 40 cycles of command. He hesitated now. The vibration of the data broadcast continued. Steady, unbroken. The humans were not begging, they were not fleeing, they were documenting. He felt the words leave him like a tide pulling back from shore. "I order a siege. Starve them out, destroy them without combat. They will die slowly and no one will be able to say we killed them. They will simply stop existing. Gavricksol's chest patterns shifted. That will take time. I have time. Praxillar turned away. He faced the command displays. The human fleet hung in the black, still transmitting. The Velhari have always had time. The hull vibrated. The data broadcast continued. The air in the Hammer of Ilya's bridge had turned thin and stale. Sheridan Cole felt it in his lungs with every breath. A tightness that never eased. 17 days of siege. 17 days of watching the Velhari fleet hold position. Maia Delacroix stood at the engineering station. Her face was hollow. Her eyes sunk deep into darkened sockets. She turned from a readout. Cascade in the oxygen recyclers, she said. Her voice was a rasp. The primary bank is dead. The backup is failing. 48 hours of usable air, maybe less. Sheridan nodded. He had been counting the hours for 3 days. Bex Fenna sat at the pilot's console. Her hands rested on the controls, light and ready. She spoke to the screen. One option left. A blind phase jump. No coordinates, no destination. We spool the drive to maximum and let it tear a hole anywhere. We arrive somewhere or we arrive nowhere. That's a suicide shot, Sheridan said. Yes, Bex confirmed. It is. He looked at Lena. She met his gaze. Her hands were stained with grease and old blood. She did not look away. Is there any alternative? No, she said. No, Bex said. The bridge fell silent. The air cycled with a labored hum. Sheridan rolled his left shoulder. He felt the old scar tissue pull against bone. He had been making choices like this for years. This one would cost all of them or none of them. He gave the order. Prep the phase drive for a blind jump, he said. Maximum output, spool up in 10 minutes. Bex's fingers moved. The vibration changed beneath their feet. The drive began to build. But Sheridan did not move to his seat. He stood at the communications station. He keyed a channel. Open a direct line to the Velhari fleet. The comms officer looked up. Sir. Do it. Low static filled the speaker. Then a voice, the translated pressure wave of Praxillar. Human Commander, you have a proposal. Sheridan spoke to the speaker grill. His voice carried no tremor. You are starving us. You will succeed in 48 hours. We will die, but we are not going to die quietly in this system. Praxillar's voice came back. Your threat is empty. You have no escape. We have a blind jump, Sheridan said. We will spool the drive and tear a hole into unknown space. The ship may not survive. But if it does, we will emerge somewhere you cannot follow. We will carry our history with us. Your siege will have bought nothing. Your species will spend the next 1,000 cycles wondering where we went. The line went silent. Bex looked at him, her face pale. Lena shook her head slightly. The drive would overload. They would be torn apart before they entered phase space. It was a bluff. Praxillar's voice returned. The pressure waves carried a new quality, uncertainty. You would destroy your own vessel rather than surrender. Yes. And you believe your crew will follow you. Sheridan looked at Bex. She nodded once. He looked at Lena. She did not hesitate. They will follow, he said, because they have already decided dying with a choice is better than living without one. The silence stretched, 17 seconds. Then Praxillar spoke again. His voice was different, softer. I am lifting the blockade. Bex's breath caught. Lena's hands gripped the console edge. You will proceed to the outer ring of this system, the Velhari commander continued. You will be given a jump corridor and safe passage out of our territory. You will not return. Sheridan's face did not change. And our people. Your people go with you. This is not diplomacy. This is me deciding your history is not worth the cost of ending it. The channel closed. Bex was first to speak. He let us go. He did not want to become another name we remembered, Sheridan said. He turned from the console. His shoulder rolled, the scar tissue pulled, but his eyes were clear. Plot a course for the outer ring. All ships prepare to jump. Bex, spool the drive to 60%. We are not taking a suicide shot tonight. The Hammer of Ilya began to move. The Velhari fleet parted. A corridor opened through the dark. As they slipped past the last patrol ship, a new transmission arrived. Not from Praxillar, from Gavricksol. Human Commander, your records, your artifact. I have questions. Sheridan turned back to the comms. Ask them. Not now, when you are safe. When your people have air and food and a place to stand. I have much to learn. Sheridan's chest rose and fell once. We will remember you too, historian. I know. The transmission ended. The Hammer of Ilya passed the last Velhari cruiser. The outer ring grew on the sensors. A lane of empty space stretched ahead, free of obstacles. Lena leaned back from her station. Oxygen recyclers are stabilizing. The Velhari released a supply drone. It has scrubbers and replacement filters. They planned this, Bex said. They were ready for a siege and for a release. They were ready either way. Sheridan looked at the stars beyond the viewport. That is what we do. We prepare for every outcome. We keep going. We survive. He paused. And then we come back. Bex looked at him sharply. He did not answer. He watched the stars shift as the ship angled for the jump point. The Hammer of Ilya did not know where it was going next. No one did. But they were still moving. And moving was enough.